No.
And now the guy that you had had the affair with, he was part of your security
He
detail?
was. He was head of my yeah, he was head of my security detail. Yeah.
Right. So, and was he present for a lot of this aftermath? Yeah,
Yep.
for all of it.
In fact, he was the one who had to tell Bruce that our son had just overdosed on a, back porch in Lakewood, Colorado.
Wow.
I
Okay.
know. Yeah.
Terrible. Terribly
Terrible stuff.
tragic.
Terrible stuff. And I'm again like all so bad. And so, again, like and by me doing what I did, not only did I impact my family, I
Mhm.
impacted his family.
Sure.
And I am so sorry for that pain that I caused. In fact, I was at a uh, grocery store a couple, months after I had left office and all this stuff. And there was a woman in an old pickup truck, and it was a really cool pickup truck. And I was like, "Hey, I love your pickup truck." And she looked at me and she's like, "Oh, it's you." And I was like,
Mm.
oh yeah, like usually I can see this stuff coming. I didn't. And I'm like, yeah, it's me. And she's like, hey, she said, have you ever apologized to the woman whose husband you cheated with? And I was so pissed. I was like, damn it, and I went inside the grocery store and I called my mom. And because my dad was a serial cheater. And I
Mhm.
called my mom and I said, hey, mom, I said, would it have ever made a difference if one of the people that dad cheated with had ever apologized to you? And she thought about it for a second and she said, yeah, it would have. And I was like, wrong answer. That was not the answer I wanted. And then I called a friend of mine whose husband had cheated on her, and I asked her the same question, and she said, yes, it would have mattered. I was like, ah, shit. And so finally, my mom's like, look, when you hurt people, you take responsibility
Mhm.
and you say you're sorry. It doesn't mean that they have to ever accept your apology, and they may not, but it's up to you to say, and not the I'm sorry I hurt you bullshit, that I am sorry of what I did that
Right.
caused you pain. And so, that was part of my
Making
journey.
amends.
hmm
Yeah. Okay. So, just incidentally, we know you're married still. Are they still married?
I don't know.
You
I
don't
hope
know if
so. I
they're
hope they
married.
were able to work it out.
Okay.
Again, it's I hope so.
And then again, I'm curious, when you're in a situation like that and the whole world finds out, and actually I'll ask you because I don't know how it got found out, but
Sure.
it's really hard to also sort of end those feelings. I mean,
Oh,
how did you decide, okay, regardless, this is what I'm going to choose, or it got so blown up that you realized you were not people you thought you were? Like, how did that pan out?
well, I think it's funny, like you said, we thought we were the best kept secret.
Hmm.
Yeah, secrets. Yeah, yeah. And which is funny because I think about Max and his substance use disorder and secrets, just secrets all around, right? Like
Yeah.
secrets are so bad for families and marriages and everything else. Anyway, the way somebody found out, honestly, I don't really know. But it it but once it was like even just being talked about,
Right. The
I really
rumors.
felt like we have to, like again, like I'm gonna like just own it because that's what you should do. Like if and so yeah, that didn't work out so well for me. But at the time I thought I can just like say this, it'll be fine. And again, I
Well,
was
honestly, did you
delusional.
feel like you could compartmentalize? Like, did you
Oh,
feel like this has nothing to do with my job?
yes,
So, yes,
yes,
I'm going to
yes.
have to, apologize to my husband,
Yep,
make some amends there, but
yep.
this has nothing to do with what I do on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I really like again, I was delusional. So yeah, I had this whole idea that I was going to be able to just put this in a box. We can deal with this. I'll, do everything I need to do. And then I'll be able to move on. And in fact, even months after I had left office, some mornings I would wake up in that little twilight right before you're awake, and I
Hmm.
would be thinking, okay, I think I've been punished enough now. I bet I can go back to the office.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do think that's such an interesting concept because people want to put people who have been in a scandal, let's say, into this box that this is all that they amount to.
Yeah.
There was no before, there's no after. This is
Right.
just who they are. And it seems like the biggest punishment, even more so than the act of anything happening, that you cannot get out of that box and you've lost all sense of credibility. And I don't know that a lot of people that haven't been through a public scandal that they can even fathom what that's like.
I completely agree, and you understand that
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
well. So and I think you said something in something I was reading about you about being about the comma,
Mhm.
about wanting to no longer be so and so comma, and then
Yeah.
whatever they decide to stick after that.
Mhm.
And I really felt that. In fact, there was this moment of kind of like elation the first time I saw a news report about something I was doing and it didn't have the comma. And
Right.
I was like, oh wow, I guess
I'm back.
right. Maybe somewhere, some way, I don't have to have that for the rest of my life.
Right.
And we're so bad about that for women, right? I
Right.
mean, because I got
And
to
that's
tell
why I
you,
asked you that earlier, because I think it's usually the women that can't let it go after the
wow,
fact.
interesting that you say that. Yeah. I, you know, um, probably on
Yeah.
some
Well,
level,
and I've learned that I think it's because it triggers something in them that they're dealing with.
of course,
Whether
of
it's their
course,
issue in their
right.
relationship, they've been cheated on, the
Sure.
secrets that,
Yep.
are living in their world. And
Yep.
once you've gone through something like you or I, like I don't have any skeletons in my
Yeah.
closet.
Me
I
neither.
don't like it. I'm like if I spit gum on the ground, I'll be like, "Wait, that was me. Let me pick it up." Like I can't do
Right. Totally.
anything
Totally.
because I'm like, I don't need somebody like turning this around and making it seem so. I am triggered by people that do have secrets or that seem like
Ah.
they're being shady because I'm like, no, 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 you can't do that around me because I
Oh.
know that what
Yeah.
that leads to, and I'm so transparent that
Yep.
it feels uncomfortable, and I notice it so easily. Do you feel like you
Yeah,
see
oh,
secrets
totally.
everywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I too, look, I just ran for Congress, right?
Yeah,
And got my butt kicked in November. But before I got into the race, everybody was like, "Oh God, here we
right.
go. Like you're gonna have all this stuff." And I was like, "Well, there's nothing new." So it's